Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Simon Mansell and today we'll be going through part 3 of me ranking some of the greatest footballers since 2002, the year that I first started watching football and really getting into football. So far we've been going through some of the greatest players to ever play the game. We're really getting through this tier list. There's 163 players in this tier list that we need to rank. So I'd say we're probably about halfway through, maybe a little bit just over halfway through. And we've been smashing through this list. Some of the players that we've been putting in are crazy. And obviously trying to find a place for them, trying to rank them against other players is quite difficult to do. But I feel like so far we've done a pretty good job. And we'll have to kind of see where we go as we go through the rest of the video. So without further ado, guys, and enough jibber jabber and yapping away, let's get straight into ranking the rest of these players and see where they end up in this tier list. Let's go. Right, okay, the first player that comes up on this list is Luca Toni. Now, Luca Toni was an incredible striker, Italian striker, made his name in Serie A and obviously at Bayern Munich as well. Had a big impact in Bayern. Luca Toni was a great goal scorer. And I mean, he went into the World Cup in 2006 as Italy's main striker, like main centre forward ahead of players like Inzaghi, who obviously are already on this list. So Luca Toni's a tough one because obviously I've made the argument for a lot of other players in this list that they didn't really do it at the elite level. Players like a Di Natale or an Immobile, where Toni, I think, did it more at the elite level, maybe for a shorter period of time than other players on this list. But he still did it at the top level for Bayern, played in Champions League finals for Bayern as well. And his longevity, Luca Toni's longevity is unreal as well. What he was doing when he was well into his 30s at Hellas Verona. I think he was one of Serie A's top goal scorer, like in the late 2010s when he was already like 37. Like the guy's an icon of the game in Serie A. But worldwide, Luca Toni, it's tough. I think Luca Toni definitely goes above players like Mario Gomez. Toni's above Immobile. He's above Di Natale as well, I think. Yeah, he's above Di Natale. He's above Adriano, I think, for the career and the longevity that Toni had. He was a big guy as well, Luca Toni. He was 6'5", absolute beast of a player. Same kind of profile as someone like a Zlatan. But obviously didn't have the technical ability that Zlatan had and didn't have the impact on the game that Zlatan did either. So we've got to kind of take that into consideration. So with Toni, I think Toni's kind of in this category here, maybe with players like Dzeko and Inzaghi, Crespo. I think Toni falls into that category, I think. I don't think Toni ever reached the level of players like Anelka or Forlan. I don't think so. I think Toni, you could argue, maybe had better longevity than players like Anelka, but Anelka peaked earlier than Toni did, so you could probably put that in there, that they're probably maybe similar long periods at the top, but Toni hit his way later and Anelka hit his earlier in his career. So Toni, I think he's fighting in this tier 6 category, to be honest. He's around Dzeko, he's around Inzaghi. I think if we're going post-2002, you could argue that Toni's had a better career than Dzeko. Better than Inzaghi, maybe. But then again, Inzaghi... It's tough with Inzaghi because Inzaghi was never he was never Milan's true starting striker in this period of time, but his impact in big games was huge. It's tough. It's very tough. Toni, I think Toni... I'm going to keep Toni there, I think. I think I'm going to put Inzaghi over Dzeko. And then I'm going to have Toni underneath Dzeko, I think. I think Dzeko probably defines this era a little bit more than Tony. Both similar careers in a way. Both had amazing longevity. But I think Dzeko's time at Wolfsburg, his time at City, his time at Roma, I think Dzeko slightly eclipses what Tony did, even though Tony had a big impact as well at Bayern, at Juve, Hellas Verona, Fiorentina. He played for so many great clubs. But I do think Tony I'd have him above Crespo. I think for the longevity and the impact in this period, I would have him above Crespo. But him and Dzeko, very interchangeable for me, I think. So next up on this list, we have Lucio. Oh, Lucio. Let me tell you about Lucio. I'm a huge fan of Mourinho's Milan team. And kind of the story of that team, that it was a team of underdogs and players that should have never really reached that level at that point in their careers. They were cast-offs from other clubs. And that goes for Lucio. When he was at Bayern Munich, his career was deemed surplus to requirements by Louis van Gaal. And then goes to Inter Milan, because Mourinho needed a quick ball-playing centre-back who would drive through and break lines. And Lucio was one of the best at that in his career. People probably underrate Lucio, in all fairness. I think Lucio is very, very underrated. His talent was incredible. His ability to break lines, his pace as well. Lucio was incredibly quick. Even well into his 30s, his athleticism never really dropped off while he was at the peak, while he was at his peak. So I think Lucio, his impact at Inter Milan alone puts him high in this list. Obviously won the treble, went and knocked out Bayern Munich. Well, bet Bayern Munich in the final as well. Van Gaal's Bayern Munich, who, was the same manager who said he was not needed. Lucio, as far as the centre-back goes, he's very, very high on this list. I think, are we looking at world-class for Lucio? If he's world-class, he's high world-class. Because I think you could argue Lucio's career really peaked. When was Lucio's peak? It's weird with Lucio because he was really good at Bayer Leverkusen, made a massive impact there, got to the Champions League final, was in the same team as Ballack and Berbatov, and he made a big impact there. I think he played for Bayern, obviously went to Bayern, had a big impact at Bayern, but obviously his career tapered off a little bit near the end. Like I said, went to Inter Milan and cemented himself as an all-timer really during his time at Inter under Mourinho. I think his impact on the game in this era is bigger than Sol. I think him and Sol Campbell, really, there's not much difference there as far as quality. So I think his impact is bigger than Sol Campbell. Does Lucio belong with players like Hummels? I think if Hummels is classed as an icon, then I'm debating having Lucio with Hummels, because Hummels was a really great centre-back and for 2-3 years was world-class during his last year at Dortmund into his first 2 or 3 years at Bayern. For that period of time, he was one of the best centre-backs in the world. And Lucio really peaked in his later part of his career. So in his early part of his career, he was really good. Obviously, Bayer Leverkusen, he was brilliant at Bayer Leverkusen, but his peak really was at Inter Milan when he was playing with Walter Samuel and Zanetti and Maicon and Kivu and amazing defenders. Lucio was one of the best defenders in that team. So I think his impact in the modern game in this era as a centre back is more than Sol. It's more than Rio, in my opinion. I think Lucio above Ashley Cole is above Isco. Does he get into this period? Did he make a bigger impact than Ballack in this period of time, Lucio? because Lucio was always consistently one of the best centre-backs in the world. But then when he went to Inter Milan, he really cemented himself as like an all-timer, in my opinion, in that team. Ahead of Ballack. I'm going to have him with Hummels, I think. Lucio. I don't think I'm going to have Lucio with players like Chiellini or Bonucci, because I think their careers in this era, they're far more consistent than Lucio. But I think Lucio, I will definitely have Lucio alongside players like Hummels, I think. Is he above Hummels? That's the question. Are we having Lucio above Hummels? Hummels won the World Cup. Lucio didn't win the World Cup. But then again, Lucio won the treble. Was Hummels part of the Bayern team that did the treble under Jupp Heynckes? I don't know if he was. Was he still at Dortmund then? I think he might have still been at Dortmund. Just as a player as well, I think Lucio was probably more well-rounded than Hummels, had more to his game. Yeah, I'm gonna have Lucio just above Hummels. I'll have Lucio above Alisson. I'll have Lucio above Harry Kane, I think. No, I won't. No, Harry Kane's had a bigger impact in this period than Lucio. Lucio's achieved way more, obviously, that goes without saying. But Harry Kane has been, like I said in the previous video, he's been one of the top 3 strikers in the world for the past decade, where Lucio was never consistently that during his career. He was never the top 3 centre-backs in the world during his career. Consistently. In periods, like I said, he was, but consistently, no. So I'm going to leave Lucio just above Alisson, and I'm happy with that. Like I said, he could move around later, but we'll see. Next up is Romelu Lukaku. Now, Lukaku is tough because Lukaku's goal record, his goal scoring ability, Lukaku is up there with some of the best of his generation. Like, Lukaku's scored goals everywhere he's gone, always been a consistent goal scorer. The criticism with Lukaku comes with his fitness sometimes. I think his fitness can be a little bit of an issue. And also his end product in the big moments, similar to someone like a Higuain. Like, Higuain was always a very consistent goal scorer, but Lukaku, similar to Higuain, they didn't really perform in the big stages, in the big moments where their teams really needed them. And I think Lukaku falls into that category for me. So Lukaku's definitely been a world-class striker in this period. His goal record has just been unbelievable. He was a teenage sensation coming through at Anderlecht. Was one of the most highly rated young strikers in the world when he was 17. Went to Chelsea. Obviously, the comparisons with Drogba were very clear, even though his style is so different to Drogba. I mean, they're completely different players, but profile-wise, I can see the comparison, and visually, they look similar, I guess. But Lukaku is not a Drogba. He's not a bully. He won't hold the ball up in the same way. He won't link play in the same way. What Lukaku's strength is running into space, finding half a yard and then kind of whipping the ball from cutting in on his left and kind of giving the ball a whip and trying to get it into the corner, or going one-on-one with the goalkeeper and trying to kind of slide it past the goalkeeper. That's Lukaku's strength. Lukaku was never the best traditional number 9 in that sense. But like I said, his goal record, I think Lukaku at his best with those few years at Everton, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, he's gone on to play for bigger clubs. He's gone to play for Chelsea, where obviously that didn't really work. His second stint at Chelsea wasn't very impressive, except from the first few games. But obviously, Inter Milan, his first into Inter Milan, he was amazing. I think Lukaku works well when he's in a partnership, when he's got a partnership with someone, whether it's Barkley, whether it was Adam Wingy at West Brom, whether it was him and Martial and Rashford, and when he was playing at Man United. Lukaku's always done, Lautaro Martinez at Inter Milan. Lukaku's always been good when he's had that partner with him. And I think someone like Aubameyang was probably more of a he could do things on his own, maybe, but Lukaku or Aubameyang, that's tough. Lukaku's not over Sol, I don't think. Lukaku and Cavani. Cavani's over Lukaku, I think. Ooh, this is tough. Lukaku's definitely over Miroslav Klose. I think, like I said, Klose at international level is pretty much unrivaled, really. But Lukaku, club-wise, has been way more successful than Miroslav Klose. Lukaku at Everton was so good as well. Lukaku in the few years at Everton when he was playing with Ross Barkley and he was managed by Martinez, Lukaku was one of the best strikers in the Premier League. Obviously went to Man United and didn't really work out there in his second season, put too much weight on, was bulky and heavy, and I feel like he's never really been the same since. But Lukaku, when he was a bit slimmer, when he was a bit more agile, the guy was a machine. Has so many attributes to be a great striker. He's so strong, so physical. But again, it's his first touch lets him down a lot of the times, Lukaku. I mean, he's one of the most meaned footballers ever. His first touches, the poor touches that he can make in the box, the chances that he'll sky over the bar. Lukaku is very unreliable, but he's so consistent at scoring goals. His goal record's so impressive that I can't really ignore that. So I think Lukaku is in this area, maybe. I think Cavani's better than Lukaku. I'll have Cavani above Lukaku. Has Rio made a bigger impact than Lukaku in this era? I'd probably say yes. I think he has. I'm going to have Lukaku there, I think. Because Lukaku, then again, Forlan at his best was better than Lukaku. Forlan at his best was better than Romelu Lukaku. So was Anelka. Actually, Anelka was better than Lukaku. But it's just the goals, man. It's the goals, season in season. It's just goals and goals and goals. And you can't ignore the ratio and the pure amount of goals that Lukaku has scored, despite the poor first touch and whatever. Like, his goal record's still so impressive. Okay, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to have Lukaku. He's above Del Piero in this period. I'm going to have Lukaku there, I think. Yeah, I'm happy with Lukaku there. I think Giggs is above Lukaku. Lukaku's so difficult to rank. Lukaku's really tough to rank. I'm going to leave him there for now, but Lukaku could move around because this is really tough to rank Lukaku, to be honest. I think the strikers in front of Lukaku, I'm happy with, really. Cavani, Aubameyang, Higuain, Falcao. I think they were all better than Lukaku. And I think Klose wasn't as good as Lukaku. So I'm happy with Lukaku being there. I think Lukaku's impact in this period is more than Del Piero. But I think Giggs, his consistency is better than Lukaku as far as an overall footballer. He's better than Lukaku as well. So I'm going to leave it there for now. But like I said, it could change as we go along. Next in this list, we have Claude Makelele. Claude Makelele is a revolutionary footballer in the sense that, I mean, he's literally got a position named after him, the Makelele role. That deep-lying defensive midfielder who wouldn't really move from that position, would screen the back four and primarily focus on defending and breaking up play and allowing players like Lampard or Joe Cole, Thiago, these players to push forward and be a bit more expressive, SCN as well, allowing them to go forward and be a bit more expressive on the ball. And Makelele was so important in those early years for Mourinho at Chelsea. As soon as he came in, really, even under Ranieri, his ability to up the level of all the players around him. Makelele was never in a team where he made them worse. He always made them better, even at Real Madrid. Real Madrid was not the same, really, after selling Makelele. There was nowhere near as successful. There wasn't as defensively tight. They tried to replace Makelele with players like Mahamadou Diarra, Emerson. They tried to get Roy Keane in for a period of time there. That didn't work. They tried to go for Thomas Gravesen. Like, they were always looking for that Makelele, like, defensive midfielder replacement. And I'd argue they didn't reach a player of that quality till Casemiro came over a decade later. So Makelele's impact on football is huge. As a technical footballer, Makelele is nowhere near as good as players like Essien. I can't have him. I think Makelele's impact is higher than Essien. But Essien was way better than Makelele as an overall player. But I think Makelele, for the position he was playing in, for how important he was for pretty much every team he played for, I'm going to have Makelele as an icon, I think. I think Makelele's so influential that, similar to a Busquets in a way, like Busquets' career, his revolutionary take on that number 6 role really defines that position, but Busquets did it for way longer at a higher level, even though Makelele's role was still very, very high. I think Makelele I'm going to have... Makelele and Kante. I think Makelele, his impact is bigger than Fabregas, but Fabregas was so much a better footballer than Makelele. Okay, I'm going to have Claude Makelele just underneath Fabregas, I think, because Fabregas technically was so much better and also played in a deeper midfielder role as he got a little bit older. When he went to Chelsea and Monaco, and he was still playing in that in the midfield, but he was playing in a deeper position, different to Makelele, obviously, because Makelele was more of a sitter. Fabregas was more of a playmaker from deep. But Makelele's impact on the game is so high that I can't have him really anywhere other than an icon. Like, the guy has a position named after him on the pitch. And there's been so many, like, clones of Makelele, like Lassana Diarra, or, you know, there's all... People are always trying to find the next Makelele for, like, a decade. And then football kind of changed a little bit when it would be players like Busquets and Xabi Alonso and players like that, players who played a little bit deeper and control the game. But for that 10-year period, Makelele was incredible, and he definitely cemented his place in the history of football. An amazing player for that position, but again, probably his lack of technical ability does bring him down a little bit, because on the ball, Makelele he was functional. Like, Makelele was very functional on the ball. But he didn't have the quality of players like Fabregas, even Kante. Like, people always compare Kante and Makelele, and I think it's a stupid comparison because they're so different. But Kante had more to his game than Claude, so I'm going to leave Makelele there. Do I have him actually? Makelele above Cannavaro? Yeah, I have Makelele above Cannavaro because I think he had more impact in this era, even though Cannavaro was ridiculous. And obviously won the Ballon d'Or as well. Next up on the list is Paolo Maldini. This is a no-brainer for me. Maldini is the second greatest defender of all time. Only just... This is so tough with Maldini, because Maldini was equally as legendary as a centre-back as he was a left-back. I think he actually played more games at left-back as well. So are we taking... I think if we're talking about Maldini as a left-back, I think he's the greatest left-back of all time. I think his ability going forward, his technique on the ball, defending, you couldn't get past him. Like, he was literally like a brick wall. His leadership, his longevity. I mean, Maldini literally has every single quality that you need to be an elite footballer, an elite defender. Maldini was that. And in all fairness with Maldini as well, it was very rare that you ever saw Maldini like slide into a tackle, slide into a challenge. His timing and his understanding of space and where to kind of lead the attackers for him to win the ball back cleanly. He's one of the best of all time at that. As a centre-back, I do think there's only one player that I can think of that's better than Maldini, and I'm hoping he's in this list. But there's only one player that's above Maldini as a centre-back. But as a left-back, I think Maldini, even to this day, I think he's untouched. I think defensively, I don't think anyone comes close to him defensively as a left-back. And attack-wise, he was... I think players like Marcelo and Roberto Carlos probably were a bit more flashy going forward, but Maldini was so functional, was good for a goal as well. And again, the consistency, the longevity. It's a shame he just missed out on that World Cup in 2006. I think he'd already retired from international football at that point. So it's a shame, really, because he doesn't have the World Cup in this era. Obviously, he won the World Cup in '94, so he does have a World Cup to his name, but he didn't win it. He didn't win it for 2006, even though, I mean, he still had the quality and the consistency and the ability to be a part of that team. And I think that the weird thing about Maldini is, I mean, the guy played up until he was 40, and he was never really out of his peak. Like, he never dropped his quality, even when he did get a little bit older and he probably couldn't push up the pitch as much as he used to. He was still an elite level left back that was almost impossible to get past. So Maldini, if we're talking consistency, if we're talking about the presence he had on the pitch, his leadership, his tackling ability, his athleticism, his leadership, Maldini is pretty much on his own when it comes to fullback. So I'm going to leave Maldini there. I think Iniesta I'm going to have just above Maldini for this period. As far as impact and what they've done in the game, 2002 onwards, I do think Iniesta obviously has done more because he's played more in that period of time. Obviously scored in the World Cup final as well, the World Cup winning goal, which adds a lot to this, where Maldini didn't win the World Cup in this era. So I'm gonna keep it there for now, but I mean, you can't really argue if I did put Maldini above Iniesta, but I think Iniesta is just above Maldini, and Dani Alves is just underneath Maldini as well, even though, again, you could switch those two over. I think Dani Alves as a right back probably is more, I think in this era, he's more concrete than Maldini as a left back was. But I think his combination of being both an elite left back and an elite centre back just pushes him above Dani Alves, because I think his versatility adds so much. And again, like I said, he was elite pretty much for the entirety of this period. He was one of the best left backs in the world until he retired, even though he was way into his 30s. The guy's an absolute icon of the game, and Milan was never really the same after Maldini retired. They lost a lot of presence and a lot of what made Milan so intimidating. They lost a lot of that when Maldini retired. So Maldini, absolute legend of the game and deserves to be where he is. Next up on the list is Florent Malouda. Now Malouda's a tough one because I never saw Malouda as like an elite level winger. I always saw Malouda as a very functional winger. Even when he was at Lyon, he was very impressive, had an impact, was very quick, skillful, could get you a goal, a decent crossing ability. But I don't think Malouda really had any elite attribute that made him a world-class winger. I think he had his season under Ancelotti. I remember he was really good under Ancelotti. Ancelotti really got the best out of Malouda. But again, I don't think Malouda is a world-class winger. So I can't have Malouda in this category. I think Malouda was... Where's Malouda going to go? He's definitely above these. Malouda's definitely above this category here. He's definitely above tier 7. I think top class is fair because he did have an amazing World Cup in 2006. He was really good. He had a few good years there at Chelsea, even though he did taper off near the end. His consistency was kind of an issue a little bit with Malouda. But that year he had under Ancelotti in 09-10, he was incredible. So I think that does a lot for him here. I think I'm going to have him just above Vincent Kompany, but not above Gary Neville. I think Gary Neville, again, consistency adds a lot to this as well, and had more of an impact in the game than Malouda did during this period. So Malouda is a top-class player, for sure. Not world-class, not high quality in that sense of consistency or raw talent or natural ability. But Malouda was very functional, very effective. and again had that amazing season under Ancelotti. So I'm going to leave him there above Juninho, above Company, but just underneath Gary Neville. Next up in the list is Sadio Mane. Now Mane is definitely above Malouda. That's not even a debate. I would. Mane was one of the best wingers in the world when he was at his peak. He was. I think, what we say, in 2016, 2017, through till 2020, maybe, you could argue Mane was one of the best wingers in the world, especially in that 1920 season when Liverpool won the league. Mane was elite that season. You could argue there was a few seasons where he had more impact than Salah, which says a lot because Salah's been so consistent. So Mane, I think his peak wasn't that long, really. He was very impressive at Southampton, but obviously not the same level as some of the players in this list that they played. And he never really had the same impact that, say, Harry Kane had at Tottenham, where he really dragged Tottenham to a level above what they were. Mane never really had that impact at Southampton. It wasn't until he went to Liverpool and really set into that Klopp system, and Klopp got the very much the most out of Mane. And then he went to Bayern. His time at Bayern was quite poor. Didn't really do anything there. Now he's playing in Saudi with Ronaldo at Al Nassr, and isn't exactly pulling up trees there either. So I think Mane, Mane's not above Hazard. I can't have Mane above Hazard. Hazard's talent was way above Mane, even though Mane had seasons where he was better than Hazard. Mane above Isco. I think Mane's above Isco for his impact and what he did for Liverpool. And he was always more of an important player for Liverpool than Isco was for Real Madrid. Even though Isco's probably technically better, but I think Mane had a bigger impact. Mane above Higuain. I think Higuain had more consistency, to be honest, than Mane. Mane's either there or there, I think. He's there or there. Because I don't think Mane had as long on top as some of the players in this list. At the same level, like Kaká was elite. Like, he was world level elite, arguably the best player in the world at his peak. David Silva had amazing longevity at the top level. Antoine Griezmann the same as Villa, his goal scoring ability. So I don't think I could have Sadio Mane as an icon. I don't think I can, even though he had that spell at Liverpool where he had an iconic run for 2-3 years, but the impact that he's had on football, I just don't think he speaks to these players. I'm sorry, I don't think he does. Even David Villa, I think David Villa's had way more of an impact than Mane. So if we're talking Mane, I think Hazard was better than Mane for sure. Even though, like I said, I think Hazard's a little bit overrated. I think Hazard was far better than Mane as far as a footballer, even though Mane's numbers were probably better. I think he's very close with Hazard, I think, Mane. Very close with Hazard. I'm going to have Mane. Mane's going to go just above Casemiro. I think Casemiro was very important to that Real Madrid team, but when he left Real Madrid and went to Man United, you didn't really see much of a drop-off. Where Mane, I think when he left Liverpool, they did struggle for a few years there until last season. Luis Diaz was a brilliant winger, but I think Mane was so effective, especially under Klopp. And his impact in the Premier League, his impact on Liverpool in those Champions League games, the big Champions League games, Mane was really important to that Liverpool team. So I'm going to have him there just underneath Higuain, but it's very close. I mean, I could have him there, Mane. I could have Mane there, but I'm going to leave him there because I think Higuain did it for so much longer than Mane, and he's got such a bigger body of work than Mane. That just tips him over the edge, even though Mane probably has bigger moments than Higuain. But it's like I said, it's so close. You can flip a coin really on where you want to put them, and I wouldn't really disagree with it. But I'm going to leave it there for Mane for now, and we'll see. Marcelo is, for me, the second greatest left back of the modern era, just underneath Maldini. So I'm going to have Marcelo in the GOAT tier, but just underneath Terry. I'm going to have him underneath Terry because I think Terry was more consistent than Marcelo. Obviously, those early years at Real Madrid, Marcelo was kind of interchanging in and out the team with Fabio Coentrao. And Coentrao was a very good player, but obviously kind of disappeared off the face of the earth really after leaving Real Madrid and never cemented himself in that Real Madrid starting 11, where Marcelo did become the left back of a generation, you could argue. In all fairness, I think it's inarguable, to be honest, that Marcelo was that. So I'm going to have Marcelo in that category. Even though, is this unfair? Because I've got Philippe Lahm there. And really Lahm and Marcelo, I think, look, that's tough. That is quite tough, actually. Is that a bit unfair on Lahm? I don't think so. I think Marcelo was such a generational talent at left back. He really opened up that left-hand side for Real Madrid in a way that wasn't seen before him until obviously Roberto Carlos did it, a decade prior. But Marcelo in the modern era, how much skill he had. He was so technical. His flair, his dribbling ability, his pace, his strength, his creativity, his goal-scoring ability as well. Scored in Champions League finals, scored in big games. His relationship with Ronaldo on that left-hand side. Marcelo is definitely the best left-back of his generation. Of his era, Marcelo is the best left-back of his era, for sure. But Maldini was kind of the generation before, but it's the same kind of time frame that we're doing this listing, and Maldini is above Marcelo, so it's tough, but Marcelo is just there for me. Marcelo could drop down to here, but I'm going to leave him here for now because I think, like I said, with Maldini, he was an elite left back and centre back, but if we're just talking pure left backs for the time that I've been watching football, as a pure just left back, I think Marcelo is the best. I would say Marcelo is the best. Defensively, rarely put a foot wrong. Really consistent. Had the consistency of someone like an Ashley Cole. I'd say Ashley Cole probably defensively. One-on-one, I'd say Ashley Cole is better. As a one-on-one defender, I would have Ashley Cole above Marcelo. But Marcelo going forward was just he was in a league of his own compared to players like Ashley Cole or Evra or Jordi Alba. So I'm gonna have Marcelo there. Like I said, it could swap around maybe as this list goes on, but Marcelo was a different level, man. His ability to kind of trap the ball and spray like Gerrard-esque long balls from one side of the pitch to the other, the way he'd switch play as a left back, the technical ability that he had from that position, as well as his defensive ability. Marcelo was so unique. I'd have Dani Alves above Marcelo in this period of time because I think Dani Alves defined his position more than Marcelo, was a bit more consistent than Marcelo over a longer period of time, more successful than Marcelo as well. And Dani Alves just had so much more to his game than Marcelo, but they're very close. I mean, there's not much separating them, but Dani Alves definitely is just above Marcelo, and in between them, we still have John Terry. So I'm happy with that so far, the way it's going, that tier one, it's looking good. Obviously, we'll see. We'll see how it goes as the list progresses. Next up on that list is Javier Mascherano. Now, if you want to talk about players getting the most out of their career, such as players like Inzaghi or, Gattuso even to a stretch, closer as well. If you talk about players getting the most out of their career, Mascherano is a great example of that. I mean, I never saw Mascherano technically as that amazing of a footballer when he was at Liverpool, when he was at West Ham, the Argentinian national team in those early years. Was never really that impressed with Mascherano. I thought he was a perfectly functional holding midfield player for that Liverpool team and played a big role in allowing Gerrard to kind of be a bit more free going forward and allowing Alonso to have more time on the ball. So he was functional, if not incredible. But when he went to Barcelona, Mascherano just went to a different level. Added so much more tools to his game, playing centre back. For a long period of time, really, if you look at so many games, post, say, 2011, 2012, it's Marcelo playing centre-back alongside Gerard Piqué. After Puyol retired in those last few years of Puyol being there, Marcelo became Barca's number one centre-back alongside Piqué. It was him and Piqué together. And that partnership was incredible. Mascherano on the ball just showed so much more ability than he ever did at Liverpool. I think being able to play centre-back gave him more time on the ball, more time to kind of spray balls around, not having to be this aggressive Gattuso-style holding midfielder, allowed him to be a bit more expressive on the ball while still being incredibly tenacious and hard-working. It was so important to the Argentinian national team reaching the 2014 World Cup final. He was amazing in that World Cup. Mascherano is above all of these players. He was world class for sure. Mascherano at Barcelona just went to a different level, man. I think I'm gonna have Mascherano just above Ballack, I think. Because Ballack, I am. You know what? Actually, no. Mascherano's an icon, man. Mascherano's an icon. I don't think he was better than Lucio as a centre back. I can't have him above Lucio, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to have him above Hummels. So he's the lowest part of that icon tier. But how important he was for that Barcelona team. A player that really upped his level out of nowhere. And for those last 6-7 years of his career, Mascherano was incredible. Especially at Barcelona, the guy just was phenomenal for Barcelona. For a 3-4 year stretch at Barca, Mascherano was incredible. And they really struggled to replace him as well. Like, they were bringing in Umtiti, who was good for a period of time and then got his injuries. Players like Longley or Jeremy Mathieu, and these players that they brought in, they were never able to fully replace the quality of what Mascherano had. And Barcelona were really never the same team. So I think he was very underrated, Mascherano. I think if you look back on his career, he's very underrated. And I think he deserves his place where he is in this list. So he's at bottom of icon. He could be at the top of world class, but I'm going to keep him just where he is for now. And we'll leave it there, I think. Yeah, I am. Because I was thinking about Sol. I think Sol Campbell was a better defender than Mascherano, but Mascherano had so much more to his game than Campbell. Obviously, could play midfield, was brilliant as a holding midfield player. Campbell never had that ability to do that, really. Didn't have the longevity of Mascherano in this period. So that's fine with me. I'm going to keep Mascherano where he is. I'm happy with that. Next up on this list is Juan Mata. Juan Mata. What could have been with Juan Mata? That Manchester United move just never really worked out for Mata. Even though he had moments at Man United where he showed his quality and his ability and he had these flashes of brilliance, I just don't think any manager really ever understood how to get the best out of Juan Mata at Manchester United. Juan Mata at Valencia, playing with David Silva, David Villa, he was incredible in that team when he went to Chelsea, playing with Torres, playing with Drogba, playing with Malouda on the other side. Juan Mata was incredible at Chelsea. Juan Mata was so good at Chelsea. He was their player of the year for 2 seasons in a row. This is obviously at a time when they had Drogba and Lampard and Terry, and he was their best player for a 2-3 year stretch. This was obviously before Hazard came in and kind of took that mantle. But Mata, for a 2-3 year stretch at Chelsea, was one of the best players in the Premier League. Incredible technical ability, traditional Spanish midfield player, small, technical, amazing ability on the ball, great passing ability, amazing vision, fantastic technique, great striker of the ball, great from set pieces. That was Juan Mata. Then he went to Man United and they were kind of shifting him out wide and not allowing him to be involved creatively. Could never find a consistent run in the team. When Van Gaal and Mourinho came in, was never the same player. But for those few years there at Valencia and Chelsea, Mata was incredible. Really, really good player, Juan Mata. It's just it's that Man United move, man. It just took so much out of his career. I think I'm going to have Mata above. I think Mata's going to go in that high quality category, I think. I'm going to have him above David De Gea. Not above Forlan, I don't think. I think Forlan had a bigger impact than Mata. I'm going to have him just above David De Gea because I think Mata, that he was so incredible at Chelsea, man. Mata's so underrated, like really underrated. He's one of the most underrated players of the modern era, Juan Mata. And I think it's a bit unfair that he was born in that same era, played in the same era of players like Fabregas and David Silva and Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets and all these incredible Spanish midfielders and Thiago and, players like that afterwards, Isco, that he could never really cement himself in that Spanish national team, even though obviously he did play his role and won, he did play a part in those championship winning teams. Mata was never cemented as like a pure starter in that team. So I think Mata will sit comfortably in tier 5. But if we're just going off his spell at Chelsea, we're looking at Mata in that Deco category for me. Not as good as Deco, but as far as impact on a team, Mata was huge for Chelsea in those few years. Right, now, the easiest option on this list, this goes without saying, Lionel Messi. Do I even need to describe how incredible Lionel Messi is? The guy is the greatest footballer to have ever lived, ever. And he's number 1 in the GOAT tier and number 1 on this entire list. And really, if we're being serious, we could put Messi here. Messi's in his own category altogether. Lionel Messi. I don't really need to talk about Messi because it's so obvious and I don't really want to tread over obvious ground, but Messi is the greatest footballer to have ever lived. I think from when he was a young player coming through at Barcelona, 2004-5, 2005-6, when he was first breaking into the team, cementing himself as a starter in 2005, taking over from a Ludovic Giuli and really becoming a starter in that team. Him and Ronaldinho and Eto'o, that amazing front three that they had. And really from then onwards, it's just consistency. It's just increased levels of output that unlike anything we've ever seen really in the history of football. A ridiculous amount of goals, a ridiculous amount of assists, numerous Champions Leagues, the most Ballon d'Ors in history, trophies everywhere he's been, World Cup winner as well. I mean, the guy's, he's literally done everything in football. It's a shame we never got to see Messi in the Premier League. There was this stage where he was leaving Barcelona and obviously the rumour mill was going crazy about where he'd end up. And I remember him being really strongly linked to Manchester City, to see him link back up with Pep. And obviously Pep took Messi to a new level when he was at Barcelona. I think turning Messi from this creative, direct winger to this just this alien number 9. Like, he became the most alien footballer I've ever seen. Messi was doing things that no human being should be able to do physically. Like, his change of direction is ridiculous. This is a man going full tilt, getting kicked, getting pushed, getting nudged, getting, tackled, and the guy's staying on his feet, changing direction at split-second speed. His control of the football, the ball's like glued to his feet. You couldn't get the ball off him. He'd embarrass you. He could score from any angle. Yeah, became incredible at set pieces. The guy's just incredible, man. I really can't think of anything negative to say about Messi. He's the most flawless footballer of all time. Like I said, that era. If we're going to talk peak Messi, which is a ridiculous conversation to have because Messi's whole career is his peak, really, from like 2006 through till 2022 is Messi's peak. Like, the guy had a peak for like almost 20 years. He's a freak of nature, man. Freak of nature. If we're just going to say specific years where he was at his peak, I think 2009, 2010, when Guardiola turned him into a false nine, through till 2015, maybe 2016. That's peak Messi, I think. But really, if you're really narrowing it down, I think Messi 2010 to 2012. That's the fakest footballer that's ever lived. That's a footballer that we'll never see again. That's a level of football that'll never ever be matched, in my opinion. I know people probably said the same thing about Maradona in the 80s or R9 in the 90s, but we'll never see a player like that again. And I mean, the fact that this World Cup could be the last time we see Messi on the world stage is quite emotional, really, as a fan of football. I don't want to think this is the last time we'll see Messi. But it's probably going to happen. And you know what? If he can get another World Cup under his belt, I mean, the conversation's already over for me between him and Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't think it's even close. I think comparing them is ridiculous. I think Messi's so far and above every other player to have ever kicked a football that it's not even a debate, in my opinion. Even if you go back to the days of people like Di Stefano or Puskas or, you know what I mean, any player you can think of, Pele, Maradona, I don't think any of them even touch Messi. I think Messi has all the skill, all the ability in the world, plus all the consistency, where a lot of those other players were incredible for a few years and then a drop off. Messi was consistent at a high level from the time he was 18, 19, through till 35, 36. I mean, absolute animal, Messi. Unbelievable footballer. And easily the top of this list and will stay there forever, in my opinion. I don't think anyone will knock Messi off. But moving on from Messi, we're going to go to Diego Milito, another member of that incredible Inter Milan team under Jose Mourinho. Diego Milito is very, very tough because Milito, I think, personally, was robbed of a Ballon d'Or, in my opinion. People always talk about that 09-10 Inter team and Wesley Sneijder being robbed of the Ballon d'Or. And I hear it because his performances at the World Cup add another level to what he achieved at Inter Milan. But Diego Milito, I'm sorry, Diego Milito in that season, you could argue that is the greatest singular season from a centre forward in the history of football, which sounds like a crazy statement. But if you really think about what Diego Milito achieved at club level that season, he scored. He scored, I think, 30 goals in Serie A that season. He scored the final goal in the Coppa Italia. Scored in the round of 16, quarters, semi-final, and the final. When they went on to do the treble in the Champions League. Scored the winning goal on the last day of the league season in Serie A to win Inter Milan the league. The guy just he literally did everything possible in that season that you could do to win a Ballon d'Or, other than, doing anything on the international stage. But I'm sorry, Milito that season, he performed at such a ridiculous level. but it's one season for Milito. So he had a Ballon d'Or worthy season for 1 year, and that's really it. Like for the rest of his career, he was okay at Genoa, but he was not lighting up. You know, he's not lighting up the world up at Genoa. Obviously went to Inter Milan under Mourinho, and Mourinho just turned him into an absolute destroyer for a few seasons. But then as soon as Mourinho left and Benitez comes in, Eto'o gets moved back centrally, and then he introduces Coutinho out on the left, and Milito starts to become a little bit phased out. So what we're looking at really is peak Diego Milito for a 2-3 year stretch. And that is enough for me to put Milito in world class, because I think, like I said, he had arguably the greatest season for a centre forward in the history of the game in the modern era. Obviously, I'm not going back to the 50s or the 60s or whatever, but just singular seasons, 09-10. Diego Milito was the best striker in the world. He had the best season of any player in the world. In that season, he was better than anybody. I think as an overall player that season, obviously Messi has more to his game, and Schneider had the amazing World Cup, and was brilliant for Inter Milan as well in the league and in the Champions League and in the Coppa Italia. But Milito was incredible that season, man. I can't get that out of my head. How lethal, how clutch, how dependable, how consistent he was for that 1 year at Inter Milan. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. But unfortunately, that's not enough. Is that enough? I don't know. It's so tough. Because Forlan never had a Ballon d'Or worthy season. Neither did Anelka. Neither did Klose. Neither is Lukaku or Cavani. Aubameyang's never had that. Like, Milito, if we're talking about one season, Milito is like up here for me. He's alongside Eto'o and Zlatan. But it's 1 year, and I have to take that into consideration, where he didn't have the consistency of so many other players in this list, even though singularly he has a better season than pretty much every other striker in this list, other than maybe Henry and Benzema maybe. Other than those two, he's had a better season than anyone in this list as far as a striker goes. Oh, Milito, man. Oh, I'm so tempted to put him at the end of Icon, but then that means he's above Falcao, and he's not better than Falcao. Okay, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to have Milito above Miroslav Klose, because he was world class for that one season. He went to a level that so many other strikers in this list have never even reached. But the consistency aspect means I can't have him above players like Lukaku or Cavani. I can't have him above players like that. Even though, like I said, singular season, Milito is so high on this list. And I respect and admire Milito so much for that season. But I just can't have him above those players, I'm sorry. Even having him above Inzaghi really doesn't feel right to me. But Inzaghi didn't have any season anywhere close to what Milito had in this period. Again, Champions League final goals, Champions League semi-final goals against Barcelona, the goals in the quarters, the goals in the round of 16, scored in every knockout. He scored in every knockout round of the Champions League. Like, you know how ridiculous that is? We're talking about a generational season. We're talking about a season that might never ever be seen from a striker again. Maybe other than Benzema with that Ballon d'Or winning season for Real Madrid, I don't think any striker has had a season like that. Even Henry at his peak was better, obviously, as a better all-round player than Diego Milito. But as in a season, Milito's untouchable, man, for that one season. I really don't think it's him and Benzema. They sit in a category on their own for that 1 year as a pure centre forward. but I just can't have him above these players, man. You know what? I'm going to have him above Del Piero because he did more than Del Piero in this period. That's unquestionable. And he did more than Lukaku. He did do more than Lukaku. Lukaku never reached that level, man. I'm not going to have him above Cavani. I'm not going to have him above... No, I can't have him above Giggs. I'm going to leave him there. I'm going to leave Diego Milito there. Because, again, that season just pumps him up so much high in this list. But, yeah, unfortunately, I can't put him higher than that, even though I want to. So any fans of that Inter Milan team, you'll know exactly what I mean. And other fans are probably screaming, thinking, this is the stupidest decision anyone's ever made in a tier list. But trust me, go back and watch. I mean, it's tough to go back and watch into that season and get a full grasp of how unbelievable Milito was. But if you lived it, if you was there, if you saw it week in, week out, if you saw those big Champions League games and the games in the Coppa Italia, the games in the league, I'm sorry, Milito's, he would have left an undeniable impression on everyone that season. So Milito sits there for me for now, and we'll see maybe if he moves later on, but I doubt it, to be honest. Next up in this list is Thomas Muller. Thomas Muller is incredible, and I think criminally underrated, actually, Thomas Muller. Thomas Muller is one of the most complete attackers of all time, and he's criminally underrated, I think, because he spent his entire career really at Bayern Munich, and people look down on the Bundesliga so much, and I don't really get why, because it is still a very tough league. It's still one of Europe's best leagues, and Muller did it in the Champions League as well. So, you know, you can only play what's in front of you, and Muller did that, and he achieved everything in the game. World Cup winner, Champions League winner, I think he won 2 trebles as well. Won the treble under Heukes, won the treble under Hansi Flick. Important in both. To me, he's a legend. I'm so tempted to put him here, Muller, because he has the numbers of De Bruyne. He has the consistency of a Lampard. He has the goals of Bale. Oh, big games as well, Muller. Amazing in the World Cup. His goal records in the World Cup are very impressive, even from a young age. Thomas Muller's incredible, man. Again, I think creatively, he's one of the best creative attackers of his generation. Amazing goal scorer, amazing leadership, great vision, great awareness, amazing football IQ, his ability to link up with pretty much any player that he played with, he made better. Whether it was Luca Toni in those early years, whether it was Mario Gomez, whether it was Lewandowski, whether it was Mandzukic, he always managed to link up and with any player around him and make them better, which is a skill that's so rare in modern football. So I'm going to have him in this legend tier list for sure. I'm tempted to have him over De Bruyne. Is he over Bale? No, he's not over Bale. I think De Bruyne was probably a bit more technical than Muller. I think De Bruyne's passing ability and vision was better than Muller. But Muller was a better leader, performed bigger in the big games, more consistent over a long period of time, where De Bruyne really didn't hit his peak till he was like 24, 25, 26. Muller hit his peak from when he was like 20 years old through till when he was like 33. Like, he had 13 years at the top, being one of the best attackers in world football consistently in that time. So I'm going to have Muller above De Bruyne. But I'm not going to have him above Bale, because I think Bale, big games, clutch moments, Champions League finals, what he did internationally as well. Even though Muller obviously did incredible internationally and, you know, helped revolutionise that Germany team in that Ballack era that was struggling for talent. Obviously, he came in along with so many other players from that amazing youth team that they had of players like Ozil and Podolski and Kroos and Khedira, and really helped usher in this new era of German football. I remember the England game at the 2010 World Cup, and they absolutely destroyed us. It was embarrassing. And Muller was a big reason for that. Everyone always talks about Ozil and Neuer and all these players and Klose, but Muller was just as important as anyone else on that pitch that game. He was incredible, and he scored as well. So yeah, Muller sits there very comfortably for me. Even though, like I said, he could be there, he could switch with De Bruyne, but I'm going to have him just above Kevin De Bruyne for me. Just very, very close, but just about. Next up on this list is Luka Modrić. Now, Luka Modrić... Ooh, okay. Luka Modrić is definitely above all these players, for sure. He's above Deco, he's eclipsed Deco, he's eclipsed Ballack. He's eclipsed Mascherano for sure. He's above Hummels. He's above all these. He's above Kane. He's above Kroos. He's above Cech, above Griezmann. Yeah, he's above all these. I'm just trying to think where to stop. Are we looking here? See, this is the problem with Luka Modrić. Luka Modrić has unbelievable consistency and longevity. Even in his early years for Dinamo Zagreb, when he came into the Croatian national team when he was like 18 and was incredible, was the best player in the team from a teenager. Went to Spurs, struggled there for a little bit when he was playing out wide, but then Redknapp brought him into the middle of the pitch and made him a centre mid. Obviously at the time was crazy because he was so small and slender, and in such a physical league like the Premier League was kind of looked at like a crazy decision by Redknapp. But obviously proved all the doubters wrong. Incredible technical player, so hard to get the ball off. Amazing dribbler, great passer of the ball. Amazing vision, hard working as well. Modrić wasn't just a luxury player, so hard working. Goes to Real Madrid, struggles there for his first year or two, and then he just went crazy, Modrić. When he linked up with Toni Kroos and Casemiro, you saw a different level of player. And obviously he won the Ballon d'Or in 2018, which again I don't think he deserved at all. He didn't deserve that Ballon d'Or. Even though he was very impressive that season. And he did deserve accolades and praise, and he deserved a lot of praise for what he accomplished that season, getting Croatia to a World Cup final, playing a big part in that. But at the end of the day, it's a team game, and it wasn't just Modrić dragging that team. Rakitic, Brozovic, Mandzukic, Perisic, Vida, Lovren, Subasic, they all played a huge role in getting the team to that. Even Vasalko at right back, the whole team, that whole Croatia team was so well drilled and talented that it wasn't just the Modrić show. Even though Modrić had big moments, it wasn't just Modrić dragging that team. I hate that narrative that goes around like Modrić dragged Croatia to a World Cup final. He didn't. He was an important part of the team, but he wasn't the only part. So I think the Ballon d'Or thing does kind of put a bit of a sour taste in my mouth with Modrić. But look, quality-wise, consistency-wise, it's so hard to not have Modrić in the legend category. The only thing that knocks Modrić back for me is really, if you're talking peak, Modrić didn't really hit his peak till like 2016. He was always very good. Like Modrić at Spurs was always very, very good. But he was not elite. He didn't really become an elite level player till he got to Real Madrid and then settled there for a few years and really found his footing. And he's aged so well. I mean, he's 40 years old, playing for AC Milan, and he's the best player in Serie A this season, in my opinion. Modrić has been unreal this season. I thought he'd come into AC Milan kind of be a bit part player, come in and out the team, but he's literally he's been irreplaceable for AC Milan this season. He's one of the main reasons why I think AC Milan will win Serie A this season, because Modric's quality stands out so much in Serie A. Serie A is not the league it used to be. That's just a fact. It's not the league it used to be. And Modrić is still so good. He's always looked after himself, rarely gets injured. that he's still showing so many signs of quality and dominating games, dominating the ball at 40 years old in such a tactical league. Modrić, man. The move to AC Milan, in my opinion, is the most impressive thing he's done in his career. Above all the accomplishments for Croatia and Real Madrid. Because at Croatia, he had an amazing team around him. Like, people underestimate how great that Croatia team were. Real Madrid, he had an amazing team around him. At AC Milan, currently, he does not have an amazing team around him. And he's the best player in his league at 40 years old. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And if he does drag AC, because he's dragging AC Milan this season. So if AC Milan do win the league this year, it will be because of a 40-year-old Luka Modrić. Freak. Absolute freak. So Modrić really, a bit like Di Natale in a way, didn't really hit his peak years until he was like late 20s, 30s. And he hasn't slowed down. Like, it's crazy. Like, Modrić has got better as he's got older, which is insane. So with all that being said, does that put him above Cafu? It does. It puts him above Cafu. Does it put him above Frank Lampard? Oh, God. Oh, does it put him above Frank Lampard? It's tough because they're so different. Frank Lampard was a goal-scoring midfielder. He was a player who liked to attack space and expose space, where Modrić wants to get on the ball, dictate play, dribble, kind of find space on the ball and find gaps and use his vision and his playmaking ability. That wasn't Frank Lampard. So they're so different, but if you're talking accomplishments, if you're talking about longevity, if you're talking about impact on the overall game, is Modrić above Frank Lampard? I don't think Modrić is above De Bruyne. He's not above De Bruyne. No, he's not above De Bruyne. De Bruyne is better than Modrić. But Modrić has the consistency that De Bruyne just hasn't had. Like, De Bruyne in the last few years at Man City, even though quality-wise he was still the best player in the league, in my opinion, just his injuries, like the injuries in the last few years for De Bruyne have been awful for him. Even now at Napoli, like, the guy takes a penalty and then he's injured. Like, he's so washed. And he's still quite young. Like, he's, 33, De Bruyne? He's not old. Like, Modrić is old. Like, Modrić is 40 years old. He's 7 years older than De Bruyne, and he's the best player in Serie A, pretty much started every minute of every game, where De Bruyne can barely even keep fit enough to play a game for Napoli this season. So it's tough. I think De Bruyne at his best is better than Modrić, but Modrić has the longevity that De Bruyne doesn't have. So I think he's above Lampard. I think he's just above Frank Lampard. Is he above Lewandowski? I don't think he's above Lewandowski or Di Maria. I don't think. If you're talking direct comparisons, like Di Maria is more of a direct comparison than Lewandowski. If you're talking direct comparison, I can't have Modrić above Angel Di Maria. I just can't. Di Maria's been equally as consistent as Modrić. Obviously, not in the sense of how long, like age-wise, but from when they hit their best years, Di Maria is very equal to that. And did it on the big stages, in the big games. He was so crucial for Real Madrid, so crucial for PSG, so crucial for Argentina as well. Oh, it's so tough. That's really tough. Because, again, I think if you're talking on their best day, I'd have Kaká over Modrić. I would have Kaká over Modrić, but Kaká's window is so small. Kaká's peak is such a short period of time, where Modrić has done it, 10 times longer than Kaká? Like, not 10 times longer, that's exaggerating. He's done it 5 times more, longevity-wise, than Kaká ever did. And again, he's never really had bad injuries. He's always been consistent, always kept himself fit, has got better with age, not worse. I'm going to have him there. I think Modrić I'm going to leave just there, I think. Some people like put Modrić in this category along with players like Iniesta and Xavi and Busquets. Like, he's not that. He's definitely not that. Modrić isn't that level. Like I said, De Bruyne at his best is better. Muller's better than Modrić. Di Maria's better than Modrić, I think. I do. I'm going to leave Modrić there, yeah. I'm happy with that, actually. I think the more I think about it, the more I'm happy with it. Yeah, I'm going to leave him there. That's fine with me. Right, next up. I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't know who that is. I think it's Nakata, you know. I think it is Nakata. He used to play for Roma, Fiorentina, Bolton. I don't really know much about Nakata's career. I'm not going to lie. I know he's a bit of a legend, like a cult hero in Serie A. And he's probably Japan's greatest ever footballer. So if that is Nakata, I'm going to put him along with his Fiorentina player because I don't know enough about his career to comment on him. I can't lie. I'm not going to comment on a player that I don't really know that much about. I just think it's disingenuous. So Nakata can stay there. Yeah, you can sit very comfortably there, mate. Next up, Pavel Nedved. Pavel Nedved, Ballon d'Or winner, of course. Champions League finalist with Juve. Multiple Serie A wins. An amazing Euro 2004 with the Czech Republic. Was part of that amazing team with Rosicky and Kolar and Barros and Czech. Really, really good player, Pavel Nedved. Great dribbler, great passer, eye for a goal. Part of that amazing Juve team. I think Nedved is around the Del Piero thing for me. He had an amazing few years at the start. Obviously, won the Ballon d'Or, peaked out, and then kind of drifted away. Nedved above Figo in this era? Yes, and he's above Del Piero, but he's not above Lukaku. Yeah, he is. He's a better player than Lukaku. He's better than Milito. Yeah, I'm going to leave Nedved there. I don't think Nedved has. He can't compete with Giggs. SCM was better than Nedved in my opinion. He was as a pure midfielder. He was better than Nedved. Even though Nedved, the thing is with Nedved, this isn't taking into consideration his time at Lazio. If we talk about Lazio Nedved, like obviously I've gone back and watched a lot of old Serie A games, and Nedved always stands out in that Lazio team. That amazing Lazio team that had like Nesta and Crespo, and he always stood out in that team. Veron as well. That was the Sven team that went on to do the treble. He was great in that team, but this isn't that era. This is 2002 onwards, so this is pure Juventus. And other than that first probably 3 years, he didn't really do much other than that. Obviously, he got relegated when he stayed with Juventus when they got relegated to Serie B, come straight back up. But by that time, he was already washed. Nedved, he was already well into his 30s. So I'm going to leave him there. I think I'm going to leave him there. I think, again, impact in this era, I think Milito's had more impact than Nedved, but Nedved has had better. He's had more consistency than Milito in this period. So I'm going to keep Nedved there. Next up is Alessandro Nesta. Now, I said earlier that there's only one player that's above Maldini as a centre-back, and that for me is Nesta. I think Nesta, in this era, in this period of time, I think Nesta's untouchable as a centre-back. I really do. I think Nesta goes there for me. He's just above Maldini. I think Alessandro Nesta is the most complete centre-back to ever play the game. He had no weaknesses in his game, Nesta. He was an incredible reader of the game. He was quick. He was strong. He was tall. He was amazing in the air. Great on the ball. Amazing reader. The way he would read the the flight of the ball coming in for crosses, the way he'd read attackers' runs and shut it down almost instantly. Nesta was incredible, and he had the longevity as well. Nesta was still one of the best centre-backs in the world when he was like 36 years old. Similar to Maldini in a way, he never really dropped his level. I remember a game against Barcelona. So this is Nesta when he was way past his peak. He was old. You know, this was not the same Nesta from, say, like the early 2000s. But Nesta, I remember this game against Barcelona in like 2011, I think, 2012. And Nesta completely shut down a prime Messi. You know what I said earlier, like 2010 to 2012 Messi is the highest peak of a footballer we'll ever see, ever. Nesta had Messi in his back pocket the entire game. Like, this is 36-year-old Nesta. This is old Nesta. And he pocketed Messi. Like, I'm sorry, man. Nesta is above Terry. He's above Van Dijk. He's above Cannavaro. He's the peak level of centre-back in the history of modern football. I don't think anyone even comes close to Nesta. Even Terry. Even John Terry, because Terry didn't have the athleticism that Nesta had. And Nesta was just incredible, man. Nesta was... You could argue maybe Terry was a better leader, maybe than Nesta. You could argue that. He was a better leader, but Nesta was a better player than John Terry. And again, played in a tougher league as well. This is peak Serie A. This is when Serie A was the most defensive, tactically structured, stubborn league in the world. This was a league known for its defensive acumen, and the best defender in the best defensive league in the toughest defensive era in the history of football. Nesta is the best player. He's the best defender in that era, which tells you everything. And I'm sure he won the World Cup as well, didn't he? He was part of the World Cup winning team in 2006 as well. So, World Cup winner, Champions League, multiple-time Champions League winner, Serie A winner multiple times, consistent, had every attribute, never really put a foot wrong. It's Nesta for me. So he goes in number 4 in Tier 1 in the GOAT category, just above Maldini for me, but very close. I mean, you could have Maldini there because of his versatility as a left-back, but if we're just going on their ability, say, as a centre-back, Nesta is even above Maldini for me. He's above Maldini. I think Nesta was just a freak. I've never seen a defender as dominant as Nesta. Maybe you could argue Van Dijk for a season, but the quality of attackers he was coming up against is not even in the same category as Nesta. Like, Nesta was coming up against a prime R9. He was coming up against Adriano, Zlatan, Totti, Del Piero, Trezeguet. And he's dominating pretty much every single person he comes up against in Serie A. So, yeah, different level. Like, Van Dijk's going up against Ollie Watkins and, Aubameyang. Like, it's not even comparable. Nesta is the creme de la creme of centre-backs for me. So, moving on from Nesta, Manuel Neuer. Now, Manuel Neuer is, equally to Nesta, is the best goalkeeper for me in this era. It's him and Buffon for me, and Buffon is in the legend category. So Neuer for me is above Marcelo. He's above Terry because he's the best player in his position where Terry isn't because of Nesta. So I'm going to have Neuer there just underneath Dani Alves. Manuel Neuer is the most dominant goalkeeper I've ever seen in the history of football in my era. I have to keep prefacing that. Whenever I say of all time or the history of football, I mean in the context of 2002 onwards. I've never seen a goalkeeper more dominant than Manuel Neuer. The sheer size of him, he had the presence of someone like a Schmeichel or like the physical, just you can't get past Manuel Neuer. Like his physicality, how tall and big he was, you couldn't get past him. He had the athleticism of a Casillas. So he was a monster of a man, but reflexes of a Casillas. He had the presence and the strength of someone like a Buffon and the leadership of someone like a Buffon. and he had the consistency of, Czech and Buffon as well. So he's crazy, Neuer, and also he has the advantage of kind of revolutionising the goalkeeper position in the modern era. We kind of went away from goalkeepers being able to boot it long like a Czech who had an amazing long ball, but playing out from the back directly to the centre backs. There wasn't a keeper anywhere near as good as that aspect of the game in the modern era, like Manuel Neuer was in his peak at Bayern Munich. You could argue nowadays it's become kind of a formality for goalkeepers. They have to play with their feet, whether it's Ederson at Man City or it's David Raya at Arsenal. But that started because of what Manuel Neuer was able to do at Bayern Munich. There was moments where Manuel Neuer was playing like holding midfield for Bayern Munich. He would rush out of his goal because he was that quick and athletic. He'd rush out from the goal and just like nick the ball off the other team's number 10. He'd run past the centre backs and just nick the ball. Like, he had all the erratic nature of someone like a Fabian Barthez, but he made it work. I mean, it's only really in the last few years when Neuer started to show a bit of age and he's starting to slow down. He's been in and out of the team with Jan Sommer, and there's always kind of seemed to be an aim to replace Neuer long term. But at his peak, we're looking 2010. That was last few years at Schalke, when he got them to it. He was a big part of them getting to the semi-final of the Champions League. That amazing Schalke team, getting them that far through till 2010. So I'd say from 2010 to 2020, 2021, Manuel Neuer is the most dominant goalkeeper I've ever seen. Had every aspect of the game, like I said, covered. Just an impenetrable, incredible, dominating goalkeeper that revolutionised the position and has left a lasting impact on the sport. And if we're talking about impact, like I keep using that word impact, you could argue that no one's had a bigger impact in the modern game as far as a goalkeeper goes than Manuel Neuer. I don't think it's even arguable, in my opinion. He's the most influential goalkeeper of the modern era, and he had the quality to back it up and the consistency as well. So Neuer sits very comfortably in the GOAT tier for me. It's nice to see the GOAT tier start filling out a little bit more as well. It's nice to see a few more names getting in there and start to fill out, because obviously prior to this list we only had Ronaldo, Iniesta, Dani Alves and Terry. So it's nice to see Messi in there now, Nesta, Maldini, Neuer, Marcelo. It's nice to see the list kind of start to fill out a little bit more now. Right, after we go, so we've done Neuer, so after Neuer, now we get on to Neymar now. Oh. Neymar is going to be tough because how do you even describe Neymar? Neymar's tough, man. As a talent, as a pure talent, I think Neymar is top 2, 3 of his generation. Like, Neymar arguably is more talented than Cristiano Ronaldo. He's probably only second to Messi as far as pure talent. So, look, he passes the icon. He's nowhere near, like, he's past all of these. He's past most of these. He's past Cafu. He's past Lampard for sure. He's past Modric, definitely. Past Lewandowski, past Di Maria. He's past Lahm, Buffon. Zlatan. See, this is where it starts to get tough for me because Neymar. Right, okay, let's really start breaking down Neymar so we get a full context of what's going on. Neymar, when he broke through at Santos when he was like 17, he broke through at Santos and took the world by storm. He was the first player, I think, ever to be nominated for the Ballon d'Or while he was playing outside of Europe, which is crazy. Like, he got nominated for the Ballon d'Or while he was playing at Santos. His goal-scoring ability at Santos, that amazing game that he had against Flamengo when he was playing directly against Ronaldinho, that amazing game, and he scored that incredible Puskas winning goal where he dribbled past the whole team and it scored that amazing goal. So Neymar, from a teenager was already becoming one of the best players in the world, which you can't really say about a lot of other players in this list. Neymar was a teenage sensation that went into his 20s and started achieving more and more and more. And the first game that I really remember seeing Neymar and thinking, you're not just a Brazilian league player, you are a world player, like a world level, world class player. The first game I really remember seeing Neymar doing that was the Confederations Cup final against Spain in 2013. Now, this was the kind of prelude to the 2014 World Cup. He'd had loads of teams from around different continents to kind of fill out this like little mini tournament. You had finalists and winners of previous competitions competing in this little mini tournament for the World Cup in Brazil. And this 2013 game against Spain, Neymar dominated. Like, this is peak Spain as well, by the way. This is the greatest international team ever. Obviously, this probably was kind of the end of that era for that Spanish team, but we didn't know that at the time. At this point, obviously, they'd won Euro 2012 incredibly comfortably the year before, beating Italy 4-0 in the final. So 2013 comes along, and I, along with probably many other people, are expecting Spain to dominate Brazil in this final. And Neymar just decided to say, I'm not going to follow the script, and dominated that Spanish team. Scored an amazing goal as well. Played really well with Fred and Hulk and Willian and all these other attackers that he had with him, Oscar as well. And he was an amazing performance. And from then on, I was thinking, if you can do this against the Spanish national team, the greatest international team of all time, we've got a serious player on our hands. And this is going to be an incredible journey to watch this young man go on this incredible journey in football. And how high will he go? Because obviously the comparisons with players like Messi and Ronaldo and Ronaldinho and R9 were constantly being thrown around. Could he make a bigger impact than these players? And to answer that question, maybe other than Ronaldinho, he didn't make a bigger impact than these players. And I think Neymar's career will always be a career of what if. That's kind of what the career of Neymar is. And what I mean by that, and it's very easy to predict where I'm going to go with this, but it's the move to Paris Saint-Germain. Now, previous to this, I believe Neymar was on the precipice of becoming the best footballer in the world. That last season at Barcelona, Neymar, that was slowly starting to become Neymar's team. Obviously, Messi was still the best player in the world. That's unquestionable. But you started to see this almost like a power shift, moving from Messi to Neymar, perfectly summed up in the remontada game against Paris Saint-Germain, when Neymar was influential in turning over a 4-0 deficit against Unai Emery's PSG and winning 6-1. Neymar was influential in that game, scored an incredible free kick, won the penalty that Messi converted. No, he didn't, I think. No, he scored the penalty. I'm sure he did. Scored a penalty, scored a free kick, set up Suarez's goal, and set up Sergio Roberto's goal as well. So he was involved in most of the goals in the game, took the game by the scruff of the neck, and dominated the game. Now, this was the moment where I was thinking, we're on the verge of Neymar becoming the best footballer in the world. He dominated a very, very good Paris Saint-Germain team in a big game, in a big European game, in a game that mattered for Barcelona, and he had such a big impact. And then that summer he went to PSG, and other than probably the first 6 months at PSG, where he was arguably the best player in the world in those first 6 months, he got injured. The party lifestyle started to take over, and again, something we've seen so many times from Brazilians in the past. And we started to see the decline of Neymar, and he was not the same player. And it's such a shame. Like, he started to gain weight, started to not really make football his main focus, started to get a little bit distracted from the game, similar to Ronaldinho, how he was a decade prior at Barcelona. And the question always kind of sticks out with Neymar is what could have been. Like, the only other moment at PSG where you could see Neymar really took over and was dedicated and was focused, like truly focused on trying to be successful at PSG, was the 2019-20 season. When was it 2000? No, it was 2020, 2021. It was the COVID year. So the COVID year when PSG faced Bayern Munich in the Champions League final, and Neymar dragged PSG to that final. Neymar was incredible in that Champions League campaign, and he was amazing in the game against PSG as well. He was arguably the best player on the pitch, but just fell a little bit short. And I feel like after that, he was never the same. He just kind of down tools. The injuries took over. You know, still got an amazing record at PSG. Obviously, won loads of trophies, had loads of silverware, which was almost a guarantee going to PSG. I think PSG would have won those competitions anyway. But for the money he went for what was expected of Neymar, the expectation that he was going to become the best player in the world, it just never really turned out that way. And, you know, he's kind of at the end of his career now, back at Santos. There's no guarantee that he'll make the World Cup squad in the summer, if he'll even be fit enough to play in the World Cup. And it's such a shame to see a player that a decade before was seen as the heir to Messi, the heir to Cristiano Ronaldo, the future best player in the world. And I don't think, other than maybe a season, Neymar never reached that level for me. So it's very unfortunate and tough to look back on Neymar's career and say what could have been. So with all that being said, where do we put Neymar? Because I put Neymar above Buffon, because I do think Neymar has had, like, this is a treble winning Neymar. Neymar at Barcelona with Messi and Suarez became arguably the most iconic front three of all time. Even though it's not my favourite, personally, I still prefer Pedro, Villa and Messi. I still prefer Eto'o, Henry and Messi. But if anyone obviously did say Messi, Suarez, Neymar, I can't really disagree with that. They're very iconic. And that treble season in 2015 cemented Neymar and Suarez and Messi as really iconic as a front three pairing. So really we're looking at Neymar. For me, we're looking at Neymar in those peak years. So we're looking at Neymar as an 18-year-old up until he's, 25, 26? In that first year at PSG. 7-8 year period for Neymar. It's a longer peak than most other players have. Is Neymar above Zlatan? I think he is. I think Neymar reached a level that Zlatan never did. Even though I think Zlatan is a complete footballer, he's better than Neymar. I think Neymar as a talent is only second probably to Messi in this era. So Neymar is above Zlatan. Is he above Kevin De Bruyne? I think, yeah, he is. I think he is. I've completely ignored Neymar in 2014 as well. The 2014 World Cup, that was on, obviously, home soil for Brazil. Neymar was incredible in that World Cup until he broke his back in the quarters. He broke his back and Brazil went into that semi-final, the now infamous 7-1 against Germany. And the question is always there of, if Neymar never got injured, is that game different? I don't think it finishes 7-1. Definitely not. I think you could see Brazil, the whole spirit of that team went as soon as Neymar got injured. And Thiago Silva got injured as well. That was a big miss for them as well. But it is always, again, it's again with Neymar, it's a career of what ifs. What if he didn't get injured in 2014? What if he didn't go to PSG? What if he didn't get these injuries? What if he was more focused on football? You know, it's a lot of what ifs with Neymar, and with De Bruyne, there isn't a what if there really. Like, De Bruyne has a complete opposite career to Neymar. Went to Chelsea when he was young, failed, really at Chelsea, never was really given an opportunity. Went to Wolfsburg, Werder Bremen. Well, he went to Werder Bremen on loan, went to Wolfsburg, and reinvented his career and showed his quality in the Bundesliga. Went to Manchester City and cemented his place as one of the greatest players of his generation over the next decade. When Neymar was a talent from a young age, born to be a star in football. But did he have the dedication and the drive that someone like a De Bruyne had, or a Muller? Did he have the dedication that they had? Probably not. But talent-wise, ability-wise, performances in the big games, I am going to have De Bruyne over. I'm going to have Neymar over De Bruyne. I am going to have Neymar over Kevin De Bruyne. Question is, have I got Neymar above Thomas Muller? Yes, I do. Now, this is tough. This is a tough one. Do I have Neymar over Bale? Because really, these two, as far as careers, are pretty much like that for me. That both are incredible talents. I think Neymar's more of a natural talent than Bale, but Bale was a phenom for Spurs. Like Neymar, really. Both made their names at kind of lesser clubs, and then went on to the two biggest clubs in La Liga, went on to win Champions Leagues, went on to win multiple silverware, performed in big games for both clubs, and then kind of lost a little bit of dedication to the game. Injuries kind of affected their careers, had big impact on the international stage. Both of them did. So Bale and Neymar for me are very, very interchangeable, but it's just the question of who had the bigger impact. Who's had the bigger impact on football? Who was the most talented player? Who was the most fun to watch in their peak? Oh, this is so tough. This might be controversial, but I'm going to still stick with Gareth Bale over Neymar. I am. I get Neymar as Brazil's all-time record goal scorer. He's one of Brazil's greatest ever players. This is obviously a nation that is the greatest footballing nation of all time, and Neymar is one of the greatest players they've ever produced. An incredible talent, but I think Bale, there was just something about Gareth Bale at his peak that made him unplayable. I think with Neymar, you could get Neymar off the ball, you could tackle Neymar, you could, push him off the ball, you could nudge Neymar off the ball. Neymar was pretty known for diving. He was known for being a bit more dramatic, being a bit of a diver, where Bale was someone who was just a freight train. He would get the ball and he was so explosive, he'd just burn past an entire team, wouldn't go down, stay on his feet, would score from pretty much any angle that you could give him. More physical than Neymar, more impactful in the air. I think his performances for Wales are more impressive than what Neymar's done for Brazil because of the level of team that they play for, even though Neymar had to play for Brazil when Brazil wasn't the Brazil that we all know and love. This was Neymar post an era of Kaká and Ronaldinho and R9 and Adriano and Pato and all. This was Neymar playing with Fred and Hulk and Oscar and Paulinho and Fernandinho. It was not the same level. So it's tough. It's very tough. But Bale is like this much. I'd have Bale this much above Neymar because of his ability to be more of a match winner than Neymar. His physicality. I find Bale a bit more fun to watch, personally. So it's just personal preference. But it's very, very close. Like it is neck and neck. Like if you put one above the other, you're not wrong in doing that. So Neymar is just underneath Bale. But I do find it a little bit laughable when Neymar's put into the conversation with these guys, because I'm sorry, Neymar is not. If you're talking about players in his direct opposition as far as where he plays on the pitch, you're looking at Ronaldo, Iniesta to a push, and Neymar is nowhere near. Like, talent-wise, yes, but career-wise, game to game, season to season, as far as consistency and longevity, Neymar is not in that same category for me. So he does sit in that tier 2 category alongside players like Bale and Muller and De Bruyne, kind of in that category, but just misses out on the top part of that tier alongside players like Thierry Henry or Benzema or Busquets. Just misses out for me. So away from Neymar, which was very, very tough to rank Neymar, we're going to go to Jan Oblak. Now, Jan Oblak, I'm going to put... Jan Oblak was incredible for Atleti. Arguably one of the best goalkeepers of his generation. I actually would say that's inarguable, to be honest. I think Oblak is one of the best goalkeepers of his generation. I think he's kind of sniffing the Courtois, Cech level for me, Oblak. Oblak isn't better than Courtois. I don't think so. I don't think he is. So the question is Oblak better than Cech? No, I don't think so. I think peak Petr Cech is better than Jan Oblak. It's very close, but I'm going to have Oblak just underneath Petr Cech. Right, we need to try and get through this list because there's so many more players to choose from. And this, we're on part 3 now, so we're really cracking on with this list here. Next up is Michael Owen. Now, Michael Owen was one of my favourite players when I was a kid. He was England's most impactful, important player when I first started watching football, and obviously going back to a few years before 2002, obviously watching a lot of games from, say, 2000, 2001. Michael Owen was a phenom for England. Ballon d'Or winner, but not in this period of time. Even though you could argue Raul should have won it that year, really, 2001. That should have been Raul's Ballon d'Or, arguably. Not even arguably, actually. I don't think Michael Owen should have won it over Raul. But anyway, that's a different conversation. Michael Owen, 2002 onwards. So this isn't peak Michael Owen. This is Michael Owen after a lot of injuries. He wasn't as unstoppable as he was. Michael Owen had a peak for probably like 2-3 years where he was in the conversation of being the best striker on the planet. That was Michael Owen between 97 till 2000, 2001 maybe. By 2002, Michael Owen had already started to decline a little bit. He wasn't as ferocious as far as his speed. But he was still an incredible goal scorer, and he showed that. Obviously scored against Brazil in the 2002 World Cup, scored against Portugal in the quarters of Euro 2004, made the move to Real Madrid, had a pretty good run there at Real Madrid. He was only there for a season, had the best goals to game record in La Liga that season, but just couldn't get past Raul or R9 in that team. He just couldn't displace them, and obviously went to Newcastle. Had a good start to his career at Newcastle, to be fair, Michael Owen. He had a really good start to his career at Newcastle, and then that injury against Spurs, and he was never the same player after that. That injury when he collided with Paul Robinson and broke his foot, and he was just never the same player then. And obviously went to the World Cup when he shouldn't have gone, to be honest. Shouldn't have gone to the World Cup. Barely played enough football. Went to the World Cup, was really underwhelming in those first few group games, and then came the game against Sweden and, done his knee within the first few minutes of the game. And then that was it really for Michael Owen as far as being a top-level striker in world football. He was pretty much done by then. Still obviously capable of scoring goals. He was still a very good goal scorer, and he would show flashes. But the problem with Michael Owen was injuries, and injuries completely changed Michael Owen's career for the worst. And I think Owen didn't have enough tools in his locker to be able to reinvent himself as a footballer, similar to how Alan Shearer did in the 90s all the way I don't know, Wayne Rooney would in the 2010s. He was not able to adapt to his lack of physicality anymore. He couldn't adapt in the same way. So Michael Owen, it breaks my heart because Michael Owen was one of my favourite players growing up. And again, like I said, had flashes where he would kind of start to get a bit of, a run in the team. He'd start to get games again, and he'd start to score goals, whether it was for Newcastle or Man United. Had a pretty decent 07-08 for Newcastle. When he came back from injury, I think he scored like 11 goals, even though he had a season ruined by injuries. And then didn't really do much after that. Went to Man United in 2009. Obviously, he had a memorable impact. Scored against Man City in the Manchester derby. That iconic goal, the assist from Giggs. Scored in the last minute to make it 4-3. Arguably the most iconic goal, one of the most iconic goals of that era. Scored in the League Cup final against Villa, scored a hat-trick against Wolfsburg in the Champions League. So he still had the ability to score goals, Michael Owen. His lack of physicality never affected his goal-scoring ability, but he went from being a player who'd run in the channels and stretch teams with his pace to being more of a goal hanger, a poacher. And it's just a shame because that wasn't Michael Owen at his best. So it's very unfortunate because Michael Owen, for I'd say a year or two in this period, was still a very, very good striker. Not elite. I don't think he was elite in this period. I think he'd already been surpassed by other strikers as far as their consistency and their goal scoring ability. But Michael Owen was still very good for about 2 years. And then after that, he was just not the same player. So again, if we're talking 90s Michael Owen, early 2000s Michael Owen, this is different. But if we're talking, mid-2000s Michael Owen, it's not even comparable. So we have to try and make the decision here. Is Michael Owen in this period above Adriano and players like... I kind of want to put Owen in this category, the great category, because was he great in this era? No, he wasn't. Owen wasn't great in this era. He was for a very, very short period of time. But Michael Owen, man. It's so tough to rank Owen in this list. He's an icon of British football. He is. But not for this period of time. So if we're going on just 2002 onwards, the best years of Michael Owen are like 2002 to 2004, 2005 at a push. And then that was it really. Had pretty much 2 years out with injury. Never got a consistent run of games. Retired young as well. Has Mario Gomez had a bigger impact than Michael Owen in this period? I kind of want to put Owen with Kluivert, No, because Owen did more than Kluivert in this era. He did. So he's definitely not indecent. He's definitely better than decent, Michael Owen. But is he above Berbatov for this era? I don't think so. I think Berbatov's time at Leverkusen and Spurs and Man United eclipsed Michael Owen in this era. So Michael Owen, 2002 onwards, was good. At his best, he was good. Is he above Giroud? No. I don't think he is. I can't have Michael Owen above Giroud, can I? Giroud at Montpellier is more impressive than anything Michael Owen has done post-2002. Giroud, all-time French record goal scorer. If Michael Owen never got injured, if Michael Owen never had that injury against Spurs, this is a different conversation because I think Michael Owen still would have burnt out because of the style of player he was. He would have still burnt out, but I think it would have been similar to like a Torres where he would have burnt out around 28, 29. He wouldn't have burnt out when he was like 24. You know what I mean? I'm going to have Owen right at the end of good, I think. He's right at the end of that list for me, Michael Owen. That hurts me to put him there. It really does, because Owen was, like I said, he was my favourite striker. Or one of my favourite strikers when I first started watching football when I was really young, and going back and watching that game against Germany and how dominant he was, and watching the games in Euro 2000 and the friendly against Brazil and the game against Argentina and the games in the Premier League and the cup final against Arsenal where he single-handedly won the cup for Liverpool. Like, that's a different Michael Owen. That's a completely different conversation to this conversation. And for this conversation, Michael Owen has to sit in that tier 8 category for me. So it's such a shame. But I can't have him lower than that because for 2 years he was still really good. 2-3 years he was still really good. But he was good. He wasn't great. So that's just where I'm going to have to put Michael Owen, unfortunately. Next up, we have Pepe. Now, Pepe is a player who... Again, we're talking consistency and longevity. Pepe is up there. Pepe was still starting for Portugal in like the most recent Euros or like most recent World Cup when he was like 40 years old, playing against France, you know, in injury time, getting just completely battered, but he was still there and he was still like, the guy just didn't age. The guy, he had some like anti-aging serum or something. He must have done, because there's no way Pepe was still a really, really great centre-back. If anything, I'd say Pepe left Real Madrid a little bit too early. Because he was kind of took out the team and replaced by Varane. And he could never kind of get his place back into the team after Varane cemented his place in there. And when Ramos became more of a centre-back rather than a right-back, and then Pepe could never really find his way back into the team. And then he left Madrid too early, and he was still a great centre-back at Porto. And again, internationally for Portugal was brilliant. Won the Euros, Nations League. He's done so much. Pepe, I can't have Pepe in the same conversation as like the top level of centre backs. I think he's an icon. I'd have him just above Mascherano. I think Pepe is just above Mascherano. I'd have him as an icon because what he achieved in the game, his longevity, how memorable he was, the anger and the physicality and the aggression from Pepe made him so memorable. And he was a quality centre-back as well. He was really quick, really good on the ball, really tenacious. And again, it's just a shame he left Madrid really early, because he probably could have got back into the team, to be honest. But he was already ageing, and no one could have expected him to still be playing at, the elite level when he was like 40 years old. So fair play to Pepe, incredible player, incredible career. And for me, sits comfortably in this era in that icon category, but just at the lower end of the icon category. Next up, we have his Barcelona rival, Gerard Piqué. Individually, Piqué, I don't think was anything too incredible, but he was an icon of the modern era's centre-backs. I think, actually, I might be underestimating Piqué a little bit. I think Piqué was pretty phenomenal, actually. In all fairness, he's won the Champions League with Manchester United. He went to Barcelona the season after, won the Champions League, won a Sextuple. He was part of that incredible Pep Guardiola team, the greatest team of all time. So he was part of the greatest club team of all time, part of the greatest national team of all time. He's an essential part of both teams. Wins the treble, another treble with Barcelona in 2015. In 2019, you could argue he's the best centre-back in the world alongside Van Dijk. Amazing longevity, amazing career, great leadership. I don't think individually he was better than someone like a Cannavaro or even Hummels, actually. I think Hummels might have been a better... Was he better than Chiellini? He was better than Chiellini. Bonucci, I think, was a better player, but Piqué's had a far greater career. Okay. I've made a decision on Piqué. I think Piqué is going to sit just... I'm going to have Piqué just above Aguero, I think. I think Kante was more impactful than Piqué in this era, made a bigger impact, and was more important to his team than Piqué. But Piqué's longevity, his consistency at the highest level, what he's achieved, his talent, his ability on the ball, his goal-scoring ability. Piqué was a pretty complete centre-back, to be honest. And, like I said, so successful for, a decade, pretty much. And he was one of the best centre-backs in the world for a decade. I think he definitely deserves his place on that list. I don't think he creeps into this legend category for me. Then again, does he? Actually, yeah, I think he does. I think he does, actually. I think Piqué's longevity as a centre-back has him over Cafu. Yeah, I'm going to have Piqué there. I think Piqué sits in tier 2 as a legend of the game. The more I was talking about Piqué, the more things kind of start coming back. And again, what he's achieved, he's been essential. He's such an important part of pretty much every team he's played for, bar those early years at Manchester United. But when he went to Barcelona, he was one of the club's most important players, and he stayed that way till he retired. Okay, guys, that will be it for today. Thank you very, very much for joining me in ranking some more of the greatest players of pretty much the 21st century, but post-2002 specifically. And it's been really fun again to add more players to this list and see kind of where these players are falling, because it's getting really, really tough. The more players we add to this list, to this tier list, it's getting so difficult to rank them because you're comparing them directly against other players in their position, other players in their specific generation, that it is very, very tough to rank them. So what do you think of this ranking so far? What do you think of this tier list so far? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments so we can have a little discussion about it, because I'm interested to know what other people think about this so far. But in my opinion, I don't think it's too bad. Maybe there's a few howlers in there, maybe, but so far I'm happy with how it's going. So okay, that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you for part 4 coming very, very soon. So yeah, my name's Simon Mansell, and I'll see you all later. See you later.